Welcome to the Screen Watching Interviews. I'm Simon Foster. Here's a few words I never thought I'd say. Perth's first teen horror TikTok series, The Curse of Baby Yaga, hits smartphones worldwide from Friday, April 7. It's a found footage series following two high school boys as they investigate mysterious disappearances in their quite suburban town. The Curse of Baby Yaga is from first-time writer-director Christopher Colley. He is also my first TikTok filmmaker interview. Mate, welcome to Screen Watching.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Oh, it's such a thrill to have you.
Yeah.
All right, let's jump in. Give us a bit of Baby Yaga 101. Give us a rundown on what audiences can expect from the TikTok series.
Yeah, sure. So it is a horror found footage genre blend because it's also a little bit of a romance at the same time. I was creating this series and I was trying to figure out a way to kind of blend the things that I love, whether it is like folklore and horror and conspiracy theories and like internet horror subcultures with my own experiences as somebody who interacted with social media. So my like high school experiences, growing up as a teenager, growing up as a queer man, growing up in like suburban Australia, and sort of all of the things that come out of that. And it all just sort of perfectly melded together.
It did. It did. I should point out, I was lucky enough to see the first three episodes. I've got to say, you in those three episodes, which amounts to about 4.5, maybe 5 minutes of screen time. No big blockbuster this year has got me hooked in 4.5 minutes of watching it. But I
Oh,
was right in the groove of these two guys. So congratulations on getting it all together.
thank you very much. That's very sweet. Thank you.
There are two key components, and you touched on it in your answer there that I want to ask you about. First, that embracing of some of the old school folklore, horror imagery
Yeah.
and tropes, I guess you could say, the horror ideas. And from what I understand specifically from your background, from a Croatian background, can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so my mom is Croatian and we have family in Croatia, and there's all of this sort of mysticism around Eastern Europe and folklore and the homeland and all of that sort of stuff. And I had this like strange obsession with witches as a teenager, whether it was just like rebellious, powerful, cheeky, scary women and just everything horror. Like I would every Friday or Saturday we'd catch up with friends and we'd have a horror movie night and we'd like get food, whatever.
Yeah.
And all of those things. And as well, I think coming from like from Perth, somewhere that's a bit quieter, the most isolated city in the world, the idea of like creativity and things coming out of the quietness and like things that are scary and things that conspiracy theories or sneaking out at nighttime with your friends as a teenager and watching all of these horror movies and then really loving the stories that I was being told and all of the like fun little nuances in these movies and even the older movies and how they would use specific effects to really like draw you in and then absolutely scare the daylights out of you and all of that sort of stuff. It's just, yeah, my little obsession.
Well, I must admit, I've interviewed a lot of young directors, and you're not the first to cite the Blair Witch Project as a key influence. What is it
Yeah.
about that film that has struck such a nerve with this generation of filmmakers?
I think for me it was sort of less about the film itself, and I couldn't help, like I literally couldn't help but make it an influence because I was like, okay, small town, people investigating something, which is, yeah, the Blair Witch. But I think its cultural impact at the time and sort of the where we're at the moment, because I know back in the 90s, I think in the 90s,
Yep.
everybody thought it was real, and the way it was marketed and the way that it was filmed, it was such a new fresh thing. And I, as somebody who was interacting with content online, whether it was like going down TikTok rabbit holes, going down like different horror video tropes, or getting on like Reddit and weird subreddit things and talking to other people who are sharing these horror stories or all of these different things, it just felt similar in that way of, oh, this is so interesting because people are interacting with the content in a new way, in a fresh way. And there were creators that I would follow online who would create these sort of short little snippet videos that were obviously like a narrative and weren't real, but because of the way that it's filmed, you have to sort of like take a moment to be like, this isn't real, is it? Or is this actually real? And it was just that way of suspending your disbelief that like really sucked you into the story that I think was like the place that I wanted to start,
Sure.
and which is why that movie was such a huge influence.
Great answer. Yeah, it absolutely was. You may have noticed I'm an older man, and I remember the impact it had at the time then. And you're right, the marketing of it was groundbreaking, as groundbreaking as the film was in its time. Excuse me. Secondly, I want to talk about its depiction of a gay teen story. Baby Yaga was funded via Screen West and Screen Australia through the Out Now funding initiative, focusing on LGBTQI plus storylines and narratives. What did they recognize as being unique about the journey of James and Luca?
Good question. I think the thing that was the most exciting about this whole initiative was they really sort of fostered this idea that we were pushing beyond the like typical coming out narrative. And I think especially these days, and for the difference between it's not a huge difference, but when I was in high school, it did feel like a lot of the content that I saw that very far and few between when it came to queer stories, and I really had to search for it as a teenager. But everything that I was sort of fed was all the same sort of coming out. It was all around your sexuality being the core of the story. And I think the thing that was really exciting about this story, and excited about all of the different projects that were coming through, where they went beyond that. It was more about a human story. It was like the nuances of a romance in high school between two boys, and like all of the really quirky little things that come about from that are so specific to that experience, and that make it so interesting and make it so like funny and awkward and uncomfortable and relatable. And so I think those were the things that sort of sparked the interest.
And putting it within a genre context, within a horror thriller story. I don't know what the other two projects were that got the funding, but that in itself can be unique, and has been touched upon in a lot of discussions about horror films over time. But in itself is certainly for Australia is a very unique thing.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely drew a lot of influences from like a lot of stuff that I've seen. I'm a big fan of A24, as I'm sure a lot of like young filmmakers are, and really excited by different films that blend genre and then also make you feel like a sense of like something unexpected or something that you haven't seen before, and feel risk-taking when you kind of just take what you've got and try to create something new.
Am I really late to the party? And clearly I am when it comes to TikTok storytelling. Is there a vast network of filmmakers who are embracing this 90-second narrative, the vertical screen format? What are its virtues? And when the time comes to tilt the camera the other way, are you going to have to learn a whole bunch of other skills to make your big screen debut?
I sort of think it's a really great place to like learn, a great place to cut your teeth, because it's one of those things where filmmaking sometimes can be a little bit inaccessible when you don't know where to start. And I think when you are like inherently a little bit creative and you just want to figure out how to put things together and figure out how to tell stories, it's just like a really great place to start doing it. And I think no matter when you look at filmmaking, no matter who you are or where you're starting, it is just I don't know, it's just like accessible, if that makes sense. Because I think when you're being creative, you just use what you've got, use the mediums that you've got. And I do think I was definitely guilty of this. When I first thought about the idea of like creating a TikTok series, I was like, I'm an artist. I'm not creating a TikTok series. But then that quickly left my mind, because it was like you're making films, you're building an audience, you are getting better at the thing, you're getting creative. And like since I was a kid, I used to make videos on my like old Nokia phone and like create things with just what you have. And I think it is really the thing that's really exciting. And I know there's other filmmakers that I look up to who started on the internet, and it's, although some people look at it as like a lesser form, sometimes the way that I view it is just creativity comes from wherever you are and whatever you have, and you make use of what you've got. Like there's a movie that's just been picked up again by A24 called, it's a horror movie called Talk to Me, and it was made by these two guys who are YouTubers. And then there's another movie who a 17-year-old is going to be directing because he made this internet video called Backrooms. And again, just it feels new, it feels fresh, it feels different, and it's super exciting. And there are other people who've made TikTok series, but it does feel still very, very new, and we're all trying to figure out how it works.
One of the key reasons I was excited about doing this interview with you is because reviewing, as I've done for many years now, cinema releases is becoming very rote, is becoming very formulaic. There's only so many things you can say about the next Marvel film, and the real strong creative people who used to come through cinema, whether it was in the wake of Pulp Fiction and embracing all that 90s indie spirit of, or even as far back as the 70s, which was the last great sort of generation of independent filmmakers through the studio system. That's now happening in smaller formats, on smaller screens, but with as much creativity. And you're the face of that at the moment. So congratulations on the Curse of Baby Yaga, mate. Thank you so much.
No worries, my pleasure.
Been a joy talking to you. Thanks a lot, Chris. All the very best.
Thank you very much. See you later.